Hello, my name is Alex Iseri, and I'm a government services consultant with Bronner Group.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jacob Yalowitz. I am also a government services consultant with the Bronner Group.
Thank you for joining us for this recorded walkthrough of the project information, subaward information, and subrecipient information reporting tools. Before Jake begins the walkthrough, I wanted to share a couple of helpful guidelines. Some of the fields in these spreadsheets are hidden. You don't need to worry about those. They're going to be filled out afterwards. You'll also notice that some of the fields are highlighted. You don't need to worry about these either. Each field has been color-coded. The darkest blue indicates a required question, light blue indicates a conditional question which you may need to answer based on your previous response, and peach indicates a question that will not necessarily apply to everyone. It is optional for some, but not everyone. One example of this is program income. Not every program will generate income, but those that do generate income must report it. There are drop-down menus with answers for some of the categories. Please ensure that you are selecting one of the predefined responses. Treasury has very strict word limit restrictions. We recommend that you draft narrative responses in Word and then copy your responses into the spreadsheet as text. Lastly, you'll need to fill out project, subaward, and subrecipient spreadsheets. If you have subawardees, please make sure that they are also completing the subaward information spreadsheet. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Hello, everybody. You should now be seeing my screen. So what we have in front of us now is the Project Information Baseline tab. So first rows we have here for expenditure category and name. We will fill these out. No need to worry about them. Anything in yellow, we will fill out ahead of time. This will show up pre-filled, no editing required. Next, we have completion status, and you will see throughout these spreadsheets that there are drop-down lists. We have attached data validations to as many cells as we could so that the options are a little clearer for the different sets of your options for reporting. So when you look at this drop-down, you see the 4 different options for completion status, which are project not started, project completed less than 50%, 50% or more, or completed. Please answer this question to the best of your ability. Next, you are required to answer whether your project includes capital expenditures. This will be a yes or no answer. So this question is not asking, have you incurred a capital expenditure? It is asking, have you or will you? Do you have a planned capital expenditure? So please refer to the budgets submitted in your neighborly applications, which are your agreement with the county on what kinds of expenses you will be incurring, and fill out accordingly. Next, we have a number of conditional fields that you will have to fill out if capital expenditures are a part of your project. So you will have to list the total expected capital expenditure, including pre-development costs, the type of capital expenditure. We've got a drop down here, and we've got a number of different kinds of capital expenditures. So these are Treasury's enumerated capital expenditures. Take a look through this list, see if any apply to your plans for your project. If they don't, that is okay. You have done no wrong. You will select Other, please specify, and you will continue on to column O, in which you have 255 characters in which to fill that out and to describe your capital expenditure. Next comes the capital expenditure narrative. You will not need to worry about this. We have ensured that there are no written justifications required for any external applicant projects. Next, going past the capital expenditure heavy questions, we have a required project description. So this can come straight from your neighborly application. You have the opportunity to make this whatever you want it to be. This is a publicly reported document. It goes to Treasury. All the reporting goes to Treasury, and then they encourage us to put our reports on our website. It goes into a data bank for Treasury. So this is your opportunity to shine. Tell the world what you're doing. Tell the world what this program here in McHenry County is doing. You have 1,500 characters in which to do this, and worth noting, I believe Alex touched on this earlier, but there are very strict word counts. So that is part of the reason why we recommend filling out in Word first, so you can look at the character count as opposed to the word count, a mistake we have made many times. So 1,500 characters to write up this beautiful project description. Next, as Alex mentioned, we have the sections on program income. So for clarity, we wanted to read off this description, this definition of program income as defined by the federal government. So program income means the gross income earned by the non-federal entity, you, that is directly generated by a supported activity, your ARPA grant, or earned as a result of the federal award during the period of performance. So if this applies to you, if part of your program is bringing in income, you are required to report that income. Next, you will be required to report program income expended. So program income can go back into the program if they are used to fund eligible costs, which are outlined in your grant agreement with the county. You will have to report those values here in column S. Next, in columns Z and AA, you will be required to report on the structure and objectives of your assistance program and your approach. So if you've met with Bronner before, you may have heard some of these terms. This is your opportunity to talk about why your program is eligible. So under structure and objectives, it asks for a brief description of structure and objectives, including public health or negative economic impact experienced. So this is your opportunity to identify the pandemic harm that your program is responding to. So this can be either a public health impact or a negative economic impact straight from the pandemic. Refer to your application and any communications you have had with the county or the Bronner Group in order to tie your program directly back to the pandemic. And this has a maximum of 250 characters, so Treasury's not asking for a novel. They just want to know what impact your program is responding to. And here in the last column, when describing your approach, Treasury asks that you describe your approach to ensuring that the response is reasonable and proportional to your identified pandemic harm. Talk about cost reasonableness, talk about comparable procurements, talk about competitive and open procurements. Again, only 250 characters. Treasury wants to see you demonstrate that you're using funds appropriately, as we know you all are. That concludes the first of the 3 spreadsheets we will have you fill out. Next, we will go on to the second spreadsheet.
But before we go on to that, I do think it is important to mention that some of you will receive different project information reporting tools. They will not be significantly different.
And how they will differ is that here in column AB, in most times, there will be one additional reporting requirement. This will be your expenditure category specific reporting requirement. So Treasury requires that for particular expenditure categories, you report an extra outcome that the federal government is interested in tracking. They want to see how their program's doing. So no need to worry if your spreadsheet looks ever so slightly different than this one. We are ensuring that everyone gets the right tools and is filling out the correct information. Next, we have got subaward information. So after you've filled out your subrecipient profile, which we will get to after this document, you will have to fill out some more detailed information on what this award from the county to your organization or from your organization that has been subgranted to a subawardee, you will have to report on what that subaward entails. So the first item here is Recipient Subrecipient Uei, which stands for Unique Entity Identifier from your Sam.gov profile, or TIN, or EIN, which are your tax identification numbers. So these 2 columns are listed as optional, but you have to report one of them. at least one of these is required. Please check in with Bronner if you need any help identifying your UEI or EIN. One of the two has to be reported. Next, we've got a number of columns that will have pre-filled information that Alex and I are hard at work at, making sure we get everything in correctly, which brings you here to the primary sector column. So there's a nice little drop down here, and it asks you to determine the sector of the subawardee of your organization. So there are a ton of different sectors here. Pick the one that best applies to your organization, or pick other. If you pick other, you've got 100 characters to explain and just to list your organization's sector of work. More pre-filled information over here. And then here we have period of performance end. And this one is a little interesting because Treasury also asks us to report period of performance start. That's one of our hidden columns. We are pre-filling period of performance start. That's going to be the day that your budget was set up, that you were first able to request funds and be granted reimbursements through the county. What we need to know from you is when you anticipate that your project is going to end. So all projects must be over by the end of 2026, but we know there are different sunset dates for your different projects. So please fill this out as your anticipated. It's okay to ballpark it. We know that it's unrealistic to ask for an exact date on which your program will end, but give us your best estimate in the format described below, and we will be all set. Next, we have place of performance address. So it's worth calling out that place of performance address is a different kind of address than your organization's address. So what we are looking for here is the first line of the address where most of the grant activities will be accomplished. For example, if you are headquartered in Crystal Lake, but you are primarily providing services to Woodstock, the Woodstock address or addresses that you can see are optional over here. You can include more than one. The primary place where you are delivering your services, which could be your headquarters, but also could be another location, that's what we want here under column M. Next, we've got optional fields for multiple addresses. We've got place of performance city. So in the example I just mentioned, that would be Woodstock, even if your primary headquarters is in Crystal Lake. We've got your state code here. We've got the zip that you'll fill out. And then here we have a description for purpose of funds. So you have 3,000 characters here to describe what the subaward is going to and what these funds will go towards. What are your goals? What do you hope to accomplish through this program? So this is a longer narrative. You likely can adapt information from presentations or from your original application to properly fill out this field. Next, we have subaward description. And looking through this, we just want to make sure that outcomes are really clear here. What are you hoping to accomplish with the subaward, with the funds you have received, with the funds that a subrecipient or a subawardee may have received? Treasury wants to see what all of their funds are going towards. That brings us to the end of the subaward information. Next, we'll talk about the subrecipient profile. Here we are. Let me zoom in a little for everyone's benefit. So here we start off with the same kinds of fields that were open on the subaward information. We need one of your UEI, your unique entity identifier, or your EIN, same as we previously discussed. Next, we need your name. We know your name, but this is the best way of collecting your full legal name of your organization. So this is very helpful for us. We will pre-fill the type of entity that you are, The options are subrecipient, contractor, beneficiary. We are covering this on the county side. No need to worry. For point of contact email address, though this is an optional field, it's helpful for Treasury. It's helpful for us to identify a single point of contact that can be contacted for any needs of the federal government or on our end. But it is optional. Next, this is here where we have your organization's address. So this is not place of performance. This is where is your entity headquartered? What is your formal address? Then fields for filling out address takes us down to column N. So we're going to talk about this further in a couple minutes, but Treasury wants to know if your organization is registered in sam.gov. If you've done a lot of business with the federal government and if you accept federal funds, it is very likely that you are registered in sam.gov. If you're getting to this point in the webinar and you don't know what sam.gov is, don't worry. We are going to go through instructions on how to register for a SAM ID. And no, the world does not end if you do not have a SAM ID. If you are not registered in sam.gov, you will just have to fill out the rest of these fields. So we will run through them, but if you are registered in sam.gov, you do not need to worry about the rest of these fields. So what you will have to answer if you answer no to being registered is if your organization derives $25 million or more from the federal government, the total compensation for the 5 highest paid officers publicly listed in your organization, the name of each executive and their particular salaries. That goes all the way down to 5 executives. And that brings you to the end. At this point, you are tired. You've heard our voices too long. You've been in our spreadsheets too long, and you are happy to send Bronner back your forms. And we will be communicating these forms on the 1st. We will get them all sent out through the ARP inbox. So if you have any questions for us, please reach out to the ARP inbox. That will be your best way to get a hold of us on the Bronner side, the best way to get a hold of Stephen, best way to make sure we get these reports filled out in a compliant, efficient manner. So that brings us to the end of the 3 sheets we're going to be sending out that we asked to be filled out and returned back to us by July 15th. Now we're going to spend just a couple of minutes going through how to register for sam.gov. So right here, we've got signing up for a sam.gov account. This is a hyperlink. You can click on it. We'll make sure to send this document out in our onboarding email that we send out on the 1st with all of your materials and all of our expectations for reporting. So on the home page, you click on Get Started right here where this helpful arrow is. Next, you go through this flowchart. You go through all 4 steps. You request a DUNS number, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but DUNS numbers are being transitioned over to UEIs, unique entity identifiers. You don't have to concern yourselves with this. The federal government is transitioning everybody. We just need either that number or your tax identification number. Next, sam.gov asks you to prepare various pieces of documentation in order to register. We encourage you to read through all of these bullet points either ahead of time or as you are going through the registration process to make sure you're all set to get registered. Next, you hit on create an account. You join login.gov and you submit and finish. There's a SAM status tracker that'll help walk you through where your status is. And hopefully this is a pain-free process if you still need to register for sam.gov. So again, you aren't required to be registered in sam.gov, but it will make your life ever so slightly easier when it comes to federal American Rescue Plan reporting. Thank you very much for joining us on this webinar. We appreciate your patience. We appreciate your collaboration with the county. We have enjoyed working with you all and look forward to reading through your thoughtful responses to these questions. Thank you very much and have a great day.